Night in Texas isn't silent, it hums. A low, vibrating hum that crawls under the skin of every creature that dares to stay awake after midnight. The desert wind carries sand like whispers, brushing over the empty highway that stretches endlessly between El Paso and some forgotten gas town. Out here, the moon isn't just a light. It's a watcher, pale and cold, staring down at the earth like an unblinking eye. Jack Hunter, a long-haul trucker, was used to these stretches. He'd driven through thunderstorms, wildfires, even the kind of sandstorms that swallowed small cars whole. But tonight was different. The air itself felt heavy. Not hot, not cold, just wrong. Like something unseen was pressing down from above. He glanced at the clock on his dashboard. 2:47 a.m. The radio had long gone silent. Static hissed and popped occasionally, and once or twice he thought he heard a woman's voice whisper something. But when he turned the knob, it vanished. His headlights carved tunnels through the dark, cutting across the endless black plains where cactus silhouettes stood like watchmen. "Come on, baby," he muttered to his truck, tapping the dashboard. "Let's just make it through this stretch." Then it happened. Out of nowhere, the headlights flickered. Once, twice, then went completely out. The engine didn't stall, but every electronic pulse in the truck died for a split second. The road disappeared, swallowed by black. Jack slammed the brakes, tires screeching against asphalt. The truck stopped with a jolt, his coffee spilling across the cup holder. "Damn it," he cursed, fumbling for his flashlight. And then, through the windshield, he saw it. At first, he thought it was an animal. Maybe a deer, maybe a coyote, but it stood too still. The figure was small, hunched, right in the middle of the road, barely illuminated by the flickering hazard lights. It looked like a child. Jack's breath froze. He stepped out of the truck, boots crunching against the gravel. The desert wind hit him like a whispering wave, carrying strange sounds, almost like voices. The figure didn't move. "Hey, kid," Jack called out. "You okay?" No answer. As he came closer, the air got colder. The smell of sulfur crept in, sharp and metallic. His flashlight beam quivered in his hand, and when it finally caught the figure's face, he dropped the light. It wasn't a child. Not really. The skin was grayish, wrinkled like old parchment. Its eyes glowed faintly, not white, not red, but something in between, like candlelight through fog. And its mouth smiled. Slowly, Jack staggered back. Jesus, what the hell? The figure tilted its head, almost curious, and whispered, but the words weren't English. They weren't any language Jack had ever heard. They slithered through his ears, burned through his thoughts like poison. He turned and ran back to the truck. The engine roared to life on the first try, though he hadn't turned the key. As he looked through the rearview mirror, the figure was gone. But the road behind him wasn't empty. It was moving. The asphalt itself seemed to ripple, as if something underneath was crawling just below the surface. The hum in the air grew louder, a high-pitched vibration that shook the mirrors and made the steering wheel tremble. Jack floored it, his truck tearing down the road, tires screaming against the shifting blacktop. The wind outside howled louder than before, almost like laughter. Then the radio came alive again. Not music, not static, just a voice. A deep, echoing voice that said, "He has awakened." Jack's heart slammed in his chest. "Who the hell?" he whispered, but the voice spoke again, overlapping itself, thousands of whispers speaking at once. "The child of the old blood walks again, the cursed one from the dark soil, the demon born of Greece." The windshield cracked, a perfect circular fracture spreading outward like a spider web. Jack ducked, his eyes wide. Through the cracked glass, for a split second, he thought he saw something flying above, a shadow with limbs too long, wings too thin, moving faster than sound. Then, silence. Just the sound of his own heartbeat and the steady growl of the diesel engine. The road ahead returned to normal, straight and empty under the moon. But Jack didn't slow down. Not for a second. He drove until the horizon turned pale with morning. When he finally reached a diner near Midland, he stumbled inside like a ghost. The waitress looked at him, eyes wide, and said, "Sir, you okay? You look like you've seen a demon." He stared at her, shaking hands, clutching his coffee cup. "Maybe I did," he muttered. "On Route 38. Something was out there." She frowned. "Route 38. He nodded. "There is no Route 38, she said softly. Jack blinked, turned to the window. His truck was parked outside, but the number on its GPS screen, flickering faintly through the glass, still read, Highway 38, Restricted Zone. And under it, in smaller letters, something glowed red, like it was burned into the screen itself. 10,000 BC, active signal. The cup fell from his hand and shattered. He didn't notice that, from the corner of the diner's parking lot, a figure was watching him, the same small silhouette, crouched low, whispering to itself. The air around it shimmered faintly with heat, and the faint scent of sulfur returned. It grinned, the same gray, cracked smile, and whispered words that would have frozen blood if anyone had heard them. "You found me again, Father." Outside, the Texas sun began to rise. But for the first time in centuries, the shadows refused to fade. The wind howled across the stone hills of ancient Greece, long before the names of cities were ever written, long before gods had temples or men had kings. This was the age of fire and bone, when the earth still remembered the taste of blood, and humans whispered to the sky hoping it would not whisper back. In the far mountains, beyond any map that would ever be drawn, there lay a hidden settlement called Thyros, a place shunned even by the wild animals. The people of Thyros did not pray to Zeus or Poseidon. Their gods were older, things of shadow and smoke that crawled beneath the soil and fed on offerings of life. When the moon turned black once every 100 seasons, the elders gathered in the Cave of Oracles, where the air was thick with rot and incense, and the walls were carved with spirals of burnt bone. That night, the black moon had risen again. A storm rolled across the horizon, yet no lightning struck and no rain fell. The sky was like an open wound, bleeding crimson streaks over the sea. Inside the cave, 12 hooded figures knelt around a circle drawn in blood. In the center lay a woman, trembling, her skin marked with strange runes that pulsed faintly with red light. Her name was Lycara, the chosen vessel. The high priest, an ancient man whose face was hidden by a mask of animal skulls, lifted his staff. The crowd chanted in a language lost to time, syllables that didn't belong to the human throat. Their voices rose and fell like waves against rock, until the air itself began to vibrate. From the shadows above, black liquid began to drip from the cave's ceiling, sizzling as it touched the ground. It smelled like burning iron. Lycara screamed, her body arching upward, eyes rolling white. Her breath came in bursts, each exhale sounding like a cry that wasn't her own. "The blood of man and the fire of the abyss," the priest intoned, "unite beneath the black moon. Let the child of eternal night be born." The ground shook. Cracks formed beneath the ritual circle, spreading outward. From those cracks poured heat and voices. Countless voices. They whispered names that could not be spoken, laughter that didn't sound human. Lakara's scream rose to a shriek as light exploded from her chest, flooding the cave with white fire. And then, silence. The flames dimmed. Smoke coiled along the cave walls. The priest lowered his staff, his breath ragged. The woman lay still, eyes open, staring at nothing. In her arms, something moved. A baby. Small. Pale. Perfectly still. It didn't cry. It only looked around, as if already aware of its surroundings. Its eyes were black, not dark brown, but the black of deep ocean voids, of pits with no bottom. When the priest reached down to lift it, the child turned its head and met his gaze, and smiled. The priest froze. Behind him, one of the acolytes gasped. It smiled. The others whispered in awe. But then the torches began to flicker. The flames turned blue. The baby's skin started to change, from pale to gray, from soft to almost translucent. Veins glowed faintly beneath, like molten lines of fire. The child opened its mouth, and the same black smoke that dripped from the ceiling began to pour out. The woman's body convulsed. Her chest caved in as if something inside was sucking the life from her. Within seconds, she was a hollow shell. The priest stumbled back. By the gods, what have we done? But it was too late to stop it. The baby rose, not lifted by human hands, but by invisible force. The circle of blood on the ground started to spin, faster and faster, pulling the bodies of the dead inward. Bones cracked, torches went out, and only the glow from the child's eyes remained. It spoke, not words, just one sound, a deep, echoing pulse that made the stone walls tremble. The mark on the priest's staff burned with the same crimson light. The old man fell to his knees, clutching his chest. Then, silence again. When the other villagers entered the cave the next morning, they found the ritual circle empty. The high priest and all 12 of his followers were gone. Only the woman's body remained, dry as ash, and on the cave wall, burned into the stone, a sigil had appeared. A circle with 3 intersecting lines, the mark of the abyss. Over time, Thyros became a cursed place. Crops died, animals vanished, and every new moon, someone went missing. The legend said that the child of that ritual was still alive, growing not like a human, but like something else, feeding on fear, moving through shadows. They called it the Oath of Blood, a promise that one day the demon child would rise again when the same mark appeared under the same sky. Centuries passed. Empires rose and fell. But somewhere deep in the caves beneath what would one day be the mountains of Arcadia, the sound of breathing still echoed. And that breath belonged to the thing they had created. When sailors thousands of years later fled the collapsing ruins of old Greece, they carried fragments of their ancient texts, scrolls and bones, whispered rituals. They settled far away, on lands across an ocean they could not name. They brought their faith, their fear, and their secret. The bloodline of Thyros must never die, because if it did, the demon would wake. In a desert on the other side of the world, a place that would one day be called Texas, that same bloodline still walked the earth, unaware that one of them had just met the shadow of his ancestors' sin on a highway that did not exist. And deep beneath that soil, beneath the rocks and oil and dust, something ancient began to stir, a heart that had not beaten for 10,000 years. Its first pulse sent a ripple through time itself. The black moon had returned. Morning never came to Thyros. After the ritual, the village remained covered in an unnatural twilight, as though the sun itself refused to touch that cursed soil. The villagers whispered in their homes, doors bolted, torches burning even in daylight. They said they could hear a child crying inside the caves at night, though the sound didn't belong to a baby. It was deeper, hungrier. Sometimes, when the wind blew from the mountains, it carried laughter that made the dogs howl and the old people pray. The Council of Elders, what few survived, gathered in the stone temple of bones that stood at the heart of the village. The air was thick with smoke, the scent of burnt herbs and fear. At the head of the chamber stood Arathon, the last surviving priest from the night of the ritual. His face was gaunt, his eyes ringed with sleeplessness. He placed his trembling hands on the altar, whispering, "We have broken the seal. The old gods have answered." A woman stepped forward, her voice sharp and bitter. "You said it would bring protection. You said the offering would make our lands fertile again. And now look, the crops rot, our children vanish." Arathon's voice cracked. It was not meant to be born of man alone. The vessel took too much of the abyss. The child, it belongs to something that remembers before creation. Silence. Even the torches flickered, as if listening. Arathon continued, his tone desperate. "We must contain it. We cannot destroy what came from beyond the veil, but we can bind it. If it grows, it will consume not just this village, but time itself." Another elder spat at his feet. "Bind it. You couldn't even kill it when it took the mother's soul." Arathon looked up, eyes glimmering with a mad light. "Because it is bound to us, to our blood. The child's veins carry the essence of every priest who stood that night. Kill it, and we die. All of us." A murmur rippled through the council. Some crossed themselves. Others whispered the old prayers of the sea. But deep down, they all knew he was right. Outside, the earth trembled. Faint at first, like distant thunder. Then louder, a deep pulse that made the torches waver. Everyone turned toward the cave mouth visible through the temple's entrance. From the darkness, a faint light glowed. Arathon clutched his staff, his voice trembling. "It comes." The villagers screamed. They ran toward their huts, clutching children and charms. Arathon, however, stood his ground. As the light grew, the child stepped out, walking. It could not be more than 3 days old, yet it moved like it had always known how. Its eyes were black voids rimmed with fire, its skin pale as moonlight. Around it, the dust rose in spirals, moving without wind. Arathon fell to his knees. "Forgive me, Lord of Shadows," he whispered. "You were not meant to be loosed upon this world." The child tilted its head, then spoke, its voice a strange, layered tone, like a dozen voices speaking at once. "You are my blood." Arathon looked up, tears streaming down his face. "Then let me serve you. Let me bind your hunger." The creature blinked. For a heartbeat, the fire in its eyes dimmed. Then it extended one small hand and placed it on Arathon's chest. The priest gasped. Light flared through his body, and when it faded, a mark burned through his robes, the same sigil of the abyss, etched over his heart. The demon child smiled. "Now you are bound to me. You will build the cage, and I will rest within it until the time is ripe." Then, without another word, it turned and walked back toward the caves. Arathon staggered to his feet, still shaking. "You heard him," he said to the elders. "We build the cage." For years, they labored beneath the mountains, carving chambers from stone, weaving spells with bone dust and blood. The cult became the Order of the Black Veil, a brotherhood sworn to guard the sleeping child and ensure the curse never escaped. They drew power from his slumber, aging slowly, living centuries, each generation bound by the same sigil burned into their flesh. But the demon never truly slept. At times, they heard him whispering through their dreams, speaking of other worlds, of stars that bled light, of oceans filled with teeth. He spoke of a time that would come when men would forget the gods and worship machines of fire and metal. When they light the earth with false suns, he said, I will wake again. The order trembled at his prophecy, but they continued their duty, passing their vows from father to son, mother to daughter, through ages of blood and silence. Centuries turned to millennia. The world changed. Cities rose where mountains once stood. The Greek kingdoms crumbled, their languages faded. But the cult endured, hidden, waiting. When the Roman legions came, they found nothing but ruins where Thyros once lay. They called it Terra Umbri, the land of shadows, and sealed the caves with iron and prayer. But the order had already gone, traveling west with scrolls, relics, and a small black stone said to contain the child's soul. No one knew where they went. Some said they fled to the far deserts of Africa. Others claimed they sailed into the endless ocean, chasing visions in the stars. The truth was darker. They were searching for a place untouched by the gods, a land where no divine eyes watched, a land where the demon could one day rise again, reborn under a new sky. Thousands of years later, when explorers set foot in the wide, burning plains of the Americas, one of the descendants of the order stood among them, carrying the black stone wrapped in goat skin, whispering prayers in a language the others couldn't understand. And when they buried their dead in the red Texas soil, that stone went with them. The bloodline continued, hidden in plain sight, forgotten by history but not by fate, because the mark still burned faintly deep beneath the ground. And one night, on a highway that wasn't supposed to exist, the pulse of the demon child began again. The cage was cracking. The blood cult's prophecy was fulfilled, and the road to hell now had a name, Route 38. Centuries had passed. Greece was now the cradle of reason and empire, yet deep in forgotten valleys, the cult of the Black Veil still met beneath the ground. They guarded what remained of the demon's resting place, the cavern sealed by iron sigils and human sacrifice. For generations the child had lain silent, encased within the stone sarcophagus carved from volcanic rock, until the bloodline weakened. A careless acolyte broke the vow. On the eve of an eclipse, he spilled innocent blood outside the ritual chamber. The echo of that life was enough. The air thickened, the seals cracked, and from within the sarcophagus came a single breath, dry and ancient. That night the moon vanished. The acolytes gathered, trembling, as the walls began to pulse like living flesh. The floor opened and swallowed their torches. Out of the pit rose the figure, no longer a child, no longer human. Its body was thin, tall, almost translucent. Its eyes, the color of molten iron. Every word it spoke killed the fire in the torches. You fed me your faith, it said. Now I feed you eternity. What followed was slaughter. The cult screamed prayers, but the words turned to ash. Skin peeled from their bones as the air itself ignited. The demon tore through them, not with claws, but with will, bending their flesh into symbols, twisting their souls into living runes that burned on the temple walls. By dawn, the valley was silent. Birds fled. Rivers turned black. Only the sigil of the abyss remained, glowing faintly on the mountain stones, a warning to the world. Erathon's descendants sealed the ruins once more, burying the records of the massacre. But the legend spread, whispers of a gray child that walked in moonlight, devouring breath. They thought they had buried him forever. They were wrong. Across the sea, the bloodline of the cult would continue, hiding, migrating, waiting for land unblessed by the old gods. And centuries later, when men began calling it Texas, that same blood stirred again beneath its soil. The demon's sleep was only a pause. His hunger, eternal. The ruins of Thyros were long forgotten by the world, but not by those who carried its curse in their veins. For thousands of years, the descendants of the Order of the Black Veil lived in shadows, in monasteries, in mountain caves, in the hidden catacombs of Greece. They called themselves the Keepers of the Ash. Their duty was simple: guard the relics, preserve the sigils, and ensure the demon child never awoke again. But time erodes everything, even faith. By the 15th century, Greece had fallen to foreign empires. Churches rose where the old temples had been buried, and the new priests hunted anything that smelled of sorcery. The keepers were scattered, hunted, tortured, burned. The ones who survived went underground, passing their secrets through symbols carved in stone and bloodlines married in silence. It was then that an elder named the Lawn of Crete, the last voice of the inner circle, claimed he had been visited in dreams by the demon himself. In the dream, the gray figure stood on a land of red soil under a sky without stars. It whispered to him in a voice like smoke, "Sail west, child of the oath. My sleep grows thin. Take me where the gods cannot see." When the Lawn awoke, his hands were black with soot. On his palm, the mark of the abyss had reappeared, a sign that the demons had crossed time itself. Within months, the Lawn gathered what remained of the cult, 32 men and women who carried fragments of the original sigil carved on bone. They stole aboard merchant ships leaving for lands unknown, what explorers were now calling the New World. They sailed for months, losing half their number to storms and sickness. But every night, the Lawn said he heard the same voice guiding him through the fog. It told him when to turn, when to stop, when to light fires on deck. The others feared he had gone mad, but he smiled and said, "We are following our God." When they reached the coast of what would centuries later be called Texas, they built their first altar in a dry canyon. They buried the relics in the red soil and mixed their blood into the dust. The desert was vast, empty, and silent. The Lawn said, "Here, no gods speak. Here, he will rest in peace." But the peace did not last. One night, a child was born among them, a stillborn, pale and cold. As the mother wept, the Lawn placed his hand upon the infant's chest. For a moment, he swore he felt a second heartbeat. He lifted the body and buried it beneath the altar, whispering in the old tongue, "When fire meets iron again, rise." That night, the winds changed. The desert howled like a beast. The cult continued to build settlements, blending among other settlers who came from Europe centuries later. They learned new languages, wore new faces, but their traditions remained unchanged. Every generation, one child bore the black mark on their chest, proof that the bloodline of Thyros still lived. They called themselves the Wardens. To outsiders, they were strange folk, quiet, isolated, their homes filled with relics no one could identify. But when the desert winds grew too still, or when the moon turned red, The wardens gathered in silence under the earth and spoke to the dark. As America grew around them, they built roads, towns, and churches. Yet beneath one particular stretch of highway, long before maps could mark it, they buried the heart of their ancient secret, the black stone the lawn had brought from Greece. That place would, thousands of years later, be known as Route 38, the road where a trucker would one night meet a figure standing still in the dark. But back in those days, the wardens believed they had finally found peace. They had kept the demon asleep for nearly 2,000 years. Until 1883, a railroad worker, digging through the desert rock near the canyon where the cult had once lived, unearthed something small and smooth, a black stone with faint, glowing veins. He pocketed it, thinking it was a meteorite. That night, the sky turned blood red over the plains. By morning, the man's camp was gone. Every worker vanished. Their tools melted. Their tents burned to ash. And the ground where the man had slept was fused into glass. The wardens knew what it meant. The heart of the demon had pulsed again. And somewhere deep beneath that glass, the whisper began anew. "You brought me here. You cannot leave me." The summer of 1883 scorched the Texas plains like a fever. The sky never darkened with clouds. The wind carried no rain, only the dust of the dying. Settlers called it God's punishment for the railroad, as men tore through the earth with steel and dynamite, chasing profit across a desert that wanted to stay silent. The foreman of the Southern Rail Line, Henry Dalton, was a proud man, known for working his men to the bone. He didn't believe in curses or stories. But when his workers began to disappear, even he stopped whistling during shifts. At first, they blamed the Comanche raiders, then the coyotes. But one morning, a worker named Ruiz was found lying beside the tracks, his face turned completely white, eyes wide open, mouth filled with black dust. No blood, no wounds, just empty. The preacher from the nearest town came to bless the ground. But when he held up his cross, the metal burned his hand. The townsfolk buried Ruiz quick, never speaking his name again. Then, 3 nights later, the ground where he'd been buried cracked open. Henry Dalton watched it himself. A thin line of black smoke rose from the soil and drifted toward the construction camp. The next morning, the camp's horses had gone mad, biting at each other until their throats tore open. The workers started leaving. One said he heard crying from under the tracks. Another swore he saw a pale figure crawling through the sand at night. Henry shouted that they were drunk, superstitious, weak. But when he went to sleep that night in his tent, something breathed against his ear, a cold, wet breath. "You dug too deep." He woke screaming, sweat pouring down his face, the lantern swinging wildly. The sound was gone, but in the corner of the tent, the sand moved. Slowly, he reached for his revolver. The sand bulged upward, and a hand emerged. Small, gray, the fingers long, jointless. Then came a face, smooth, with black eyes that reflected the firelight. It smiled. Henry fired all 6 shots. When the other men rushed in, the tent was empty. Only his gun lay in the sand, melted into the shape of a spiral. That night, the wind shifted again, and a new storm swept through the camp. Not dust, but ash. When it cleared, the land was scorched black in a perfect circle, and every bird within miles had fallen from the sky. The locals began calling it the Devil's Glass. For years afterward, no grass grew there. No animal crossed it. Children in nearby towns said they saw shadows moving in that direction during full moons. And the elders, The few who still remembered the old symbols recognized the pattern burned into the ground. It was the mark of the abyss. Far from the site, deep beneath the desert where the old cult had buried their secrets, the descendants of the wardens gathered again. They had hoped never to speak the words, but the prophecy had begun. In a small stone chamber lit by lanterns, an old woman with the mark etched into her chest whispered, "It has found its voice again." Her son, a farmer who had never believed her stories, asked, "Mama, what's it mean?" She looked at him with tears in her eyes. "It means he's still hungry." The wardens sent messengers across the plains, searching for any trace of the black stone. But none returned. Travelers who ventured near the Devil's Glass vanished without a trace. Those who passed by at night claimed to see a child walking alone across the horizon, glowing faintly in the moonlight, whispering in tongues older than the earth. By the time the railroad was completed, the company sealed off the area. Maps stopped marking it. The line itself was rerouted, leaving a dead stretch of track buried beneath the sand, right above where the demons slept. Years turned to decades. The world moved on. Towns rose and fell. The railroad became a highway. And somewhere beneath that asphalt, the black stone still pulsed every few years, faint as a heartbeat, waiting for the right moment to wake. That moment would not come again until the 21st century, when diesel engines roared across the same cursed land. And when one trucker drove through the night on a road that shouldn't have existed, the road that the old maps still whispered about in secret. Route 38. The circle was nearly complete. The demon child of 10,000 BC was almost home. The desert had long since changed its face. Where railroad tracks once cut through nothingness, a sunburnt highway now sliced across the Texas plains. It was a lonely route, known to truckers as the Road of Silence. No cell phone signal, no gas station for miles. And after dark, no headlights dared to break the black horizon. But curiosity is stronger than superstition. In 2024, a research team from the University of Austin, led by Dr. Clara Voss, a brilliant but skeptical archaeologist, began surveying the area for signs of prehistoric life. Satellite scans had revealed strange geometric impressions beneath the surface, circles and lines too perfect to be natural. Clara was determined to prove that the markings belonged to an ancient human civilization, perhaps 12,000 years old, older than anything yet found in North America. Her team arrived in early June, armed with drones, radar scanners, and the arrogance of science. The desert, however, had other plans. By their second day, the machines began to malfunction. The GPS froze, and compasses spun in slow circles. Even the solar batteries drained faster than expected, as though something was leaching the power from their circuits. Dr. Voss laughed it off. "Probably magnetic iron beneath the crust," she said. "Relax. We're here to find fossils, not ghosts." But at night, when the wind changed, the sand around their tents began to hum. Not howl hum, a deep, almost musical vibration that settled into their bones. On the third morning, one of the graduate students, Dylan, found something half buried in the dirt, a smooth black shard of stone, curved like glass, yet cold to the touch. He brought it to Clara's tent. "This doesn't look like volcanic glass," he said. "It's heavier, and it vibrates." Clara frowned. She pressed her ear against it and heard something faint, like a distant cry. That night, she couldn't sleep. The desert seemed alive. The sky looked lower, heavier, as if pressing against the world. In the distance, A truck passed by, headlights glowing for a second before vanishing into the void. Then, nothing but silence. At 2:47 a.m., Dylan screamed. Everyone rushed to his tent, only to find it empty. His sleeping bag was shredded, and a circle had been drawn into the sand with perfect precision. No footprints, no sign of struggle, only the same black shard resting in the center, now glowing faintly red. Clara's hands trembled as she picked it up. The glow pulsed like a heartbeat. She felt warmth crawl up her wrist, her forearm, into her chest. Then she heard it, the same whisper that had haunted the Texas night for centuries. "I was born beneath your sun. Feed me the earth again." She threw the shard away and stumbled back. "It's talking," she whispered. The others thought she'd gone mad. They packed up camp at sunrise, desperate to leave. But the main road had vanished beneath the sandstorm that struck overnight. The GPS showed they were 50 miles from where they had been, though they hadn't moved an inch. And that's when they saw it. A structure half buried in the dunes. Stone walls black as obsidian, marked with ancient runes, the same Greek sigils of summoning found in Mediterranean ruins, but weathered as if 10,000 years had passed. "How is this even possible?" said one of the team members. Clara approached the structure slowly, brushing away the sand from a central arch. The carvings twisted into a symbol she recognized from her studies, the mark of the abyss. She whispered, "It's the same mark from the Dalton site, from the railroad records." Her voice trembled. The connection hit her. 1883, the Devil's Glass, and now this. They opened the arch carefully, revealing a downward passage, stairs leading deep beneath the sand. The air that came out was wet and cold, smelling like salt and rust. Inside, their flashlights barely worked. The deeper they went, the darker it grew, not from lack of light, but as if the darkness itself were alive, swallowing illumination whole. On the walls, frescoes depicted a monstrous birth, a woman crying under a blood-red moon, surrounded by hooded figures. A child with black eyes emerging from fire. Greek letters carved above it read, "The son of the first void." One of the assistants whispered, "Is this the demonic baby legend?" Clara didn't answer. Her eyes had locked on something at the center of the chamber, an altar made of bones fused with stone. Upon it lay a cracked black egg, covered in ash. It pulsed, just once. Every hair on her body stood up. The hum returned, stronger now, rattling their teeth. The stone began to glow, bleeding red light into the chamber. "Get out!" Clara screamed. They ran, sand pouring through the cracks as if the desert itself wanted to swallow them. The tunnel shook violently. By the time they reached the surface, half their gear was lost beneath the collapsing passage. From the distance, a black spiral of smoke rose from the buried site, twisting high into the sky, a signal that hadn't been seen in over 1,000 years. In nearby towns, people woke up from nightmares they couldn't remember. Dogs howled endlessly toward the western desert. And somewhere on Route 38, a long-haul trucker felt his radio turn on by itself, a voice whispering through the static. "You found my cradle." The baby that had once been born in Greece, fed by blood and shadow, was stirring again, now older than time, waiting for the world that had forgotten it. The desert was silent again, too silent. The stars, once bright over the Texas sky, now seemed to flicker uneasily, as though something unseen was breathing between them. The horizon shimmered like heat haze, but the night was cold, unnaturally cold. Jack Hamlin, the same trucker from that first night, The one who had seen a shadow cross the highway and vanish into dust was back on Route 38. It had been 3 months since that strange night, and though he had tried to forget it, the dreams never left him. He kept seeing a crying child with coal-black eyes crawling through a tunnel of fire. Every time he woke, his CB radio was already turned on, whispering a single word through static. Home. Tonight. He wasn't supposed to take this route. His dispatcher had given him strict orders to avoid the old highway after a few inexplicable GPS failures from other drivers. But the main interstate was closed due to a storm, and Jack didn't like sitting still. So he took the detour. Route 38. The forbidden stretch. The air was heavy, carrying the metallic scent of rain, though no rain had fallen in weeks. As the truck rolled down the silent road, his headlights carved tunnels through drifting fog. Then the radio crackled. "Jack, can you hear me?" He froze. It was Clara's voice, the archaeologist. He didn't know how he knew that, but he knew. He'd never met her, never even heard her voice, yet it came through as clearly as if she were sitting beside him. "It's awake," the voice said. "We shouldn't have touched the stone. It remembers you." He slammed the brakes. "Who the hell is this?" he shouted, gripping the wheel. But the radio stayed silent. The fog thickened. His headlights dimmed. The road began to shimmer again, twisting under the tires, not bending, but breathing. He stepped out of the truck, flashlight in hand. The silence was absolute. Even the insects were gone. That's when he saw them, faint lights glowing in the distance, forming a circle in the desert sand beside the highway. He walked closer, boots crunching on gravel. Each light pulsed in rhythm, like heartbeats. And in the center of the circle stood a small figure. It looked like a child, barefoot, naked, its skin gray as ash. The moment Jack's flashlight hit it, the child turned its head slowly. Its eyes reflected no light. "You brought the fire back," it whispered. Jack stumbled backward. "Stay away." But the child stepped forward. The lights around it began to rise into the air, spiraling upward, shaping into thin streams of black smoke that formed human faces, old, screaming faces from another age. The fog howled, turning into wind. Jack ran to his truck and slammed the door. The engine roared, but when he looked in the side mirror, the child was sitting in the passenger seat. Its mouth curved into a smile too wide, too human. "Take me home," it said softly. Jack screamed and swerved, the truck crashing into a sand embankment. The windshield shattered. Darkness. When he woke, dawn was breaking, but the desert was gone. He was lying on wet soil, surrounded by ruins that shouldn't exist. Stone walls, black as tar, rose around him. Symbols glowed faintly red beneath his feet. And there, at the center, the black shard pulsed like a living heart. Clara's voice echoed somewhere above. "Jack, don't touch it. It's not an object, it's a vessel." He turned to see her, pale, covered in dust, her eyes bloodshot with exhaustion. Behind her, the remaining archaeologists huddled near the collapsed archway. "Where are we?" Jack gasped. "We're underneath Route 38, she said. "The structure wasn't destroyed, it shifted. It exists in 2 timelines." The stone pulsed again. The air grew hot. Sand began to fall like rain from above. Then, a voice filled the chamber, deep, ancient, vibrating the bones in their chests. "You dug through time to find me. Now time will feed me." The walls began to move, twisting like serpents. The symbols ignited in black flame. From the stone, tendrils of shadow erupted, striking outward, one wrapping around Jack's leg, another around Clara's arm. she screamed, trying to cut it with her field knife. But the blade melted on contact. The shadows pulled them toward the altar, toward the black egg, which was now splitting open. From within, light spilled, but it was wrong. It wasn't brightness. It was reverse light, draining color and warmth from everything it touched. And inside that glow, something unfolded. Something shaped like a man, but far too tall, far too thin, with skin the color of dying embers. It opened its mouth, not to breathe, but to release a whisper. The whisper that had been traveling for 10,000 years. I was born of your fear. The chamber quaked. The sky above Texas darkened though it was morning. Lightning struck the sand plains in perfect circles. All across the desert, power lines failed, and every radio began to broadcast a single hum, low, rhythmic, ancient. The demon child had awakened. Jack's last sight before he blacked out was the creature's eyes. Not eyes at all, but holes into a deeper blackness. And somewhere in the distance, beneath the roaring storm, 1,000 unseen voices began to chant again. The same chant whispered by Greek priests in 10,000 BC. The cradle opens. The hunger returns. The desert sky over Texas bled crimson. The sunrise didn't come with warmth, it came with static. Every radio tower from Amarillo to Lubbock began to pulse with the same frequency. The sound was faint at first, like the hum of a dying generator, but then it deepened, resonating in every speaker, every wire, every living nerve. The hum carried words, not in English, not in any language known to man, but everyone who heard it understood. It was a calling. By the time the National Weather Service issued a solar anomaly alert, it was already too late. Thousands of devices across Texas flickered to life on their own. Phones, TVs, CB radios, even old jukeboxes in forgotten diners, all flashing one phrase on their screens. He has returned. In a dusty town 50 miles east of Route 38, people gathered in confusion. Birds fell from the sky mid-flight. The sun looked distorted, as though something massive hung between it and Earth, something moving. Meanwhile, deep underground, in the shattered chamber beneath the desert, Jack Hanlon awoke. He lay face down on black dust, coughing, the air thick with metallic smoke. His head throbbed. Around him, the walls glowed faintly red. The others were gone, except for Clara, who sat trembling near the altar, her hands clutching her ears. She was whispering the same words over and over. "We opened it. We opened it." Jack staggered toward her. "Clara, we need to get out. Where's your team?" She looked up slowly. Blood trickled from her nose. Her pupils were dilated to black. "They're gone," she said in a hollow voice. "It took them into the walls." Jack froze. What took them? Clara turned her gaze to the egg, or what was left of it. The shell had cracked open completely, revealing a black void that pulsed with slow, rhythmic beats. "It's not a creature," she said. "It's a frequency given form. The child wasn't just born, it was transmitted. The ancient Greeks didn't summon demons, they tuned into one." Jack didn't understand, but the more she spoke, the louder the hum became. His vision blurred, the air shimmered like liquid. He fell to his knees as the radio in his truck, parked far above them, switched on by itself. Radio static. "We are the echo of the first fear. Blood remembers." At that same moment, across modern Texas, strange phenomena erupted. In a small-town diner, an old man watched the coffee in his cup start to ripple like something was breathing beneath it. A woman driving down the interstate saw the asphalt shift like a living skin, the the lane markings twisting into circular runes. And in Houston, satellites picked up a heat signature spreading through the western desert, perfectly circular, expanding outward at a steady rate of 1 mile per minute. They thought it was a wildfire, but fires don't move in spirals. Back underground, Clara began to laugh, a broken, exhausted laugh that turned into a sob. It's rewriting the signal, using our machines, using our thoughts. The hum surged, rising to a deafening pitch. The symbols on the walls began to rearrange themselves, glowing in spirals of red and white. Jack looked around. The chamber was stretching, expanding, as though space itself was folding open. Then he saw them, silhouettes emerging from the walls, the same hooded figures that once chanted in Greece, now half corporeal, half shadow. Their faces were featureless, but each held the same black mark over the chest, the mark of the abyss. They surrounded the altar, kneeling in perfect unison, whispering in a chorus that echoed through both the chamber and the airwaves above. He who was born without time now breathes through the wires. Let the world hear the first cry again. Jack grabbed Clara's arm. We have to move now. They ran toward the tunnel, stumbling through falling sand and flickering light. But as they climbed upward, the hum changed. It wasn't just sound anymore. It had weight. It pressed against their bodies, pushing them back. Jack pushed harder, yelling over the noise. What does it want? Clara looked back, her face lit by the glow of the altar. It doesn't want anything. It's hungry. It feeds on fear, and we've been feeding it for centuries. The tunnel burst open, blinding light searing their eyes. They crawled out onto the desert surface, but what they saw made Jack fall silent. The horizon was burning red. Not fire, energy. A massive black spiral was forming across the desert, visible even in daylight, stretching miles wide. The sand had turned glassy, reflective like obsidian. From its center rose something enormous, not solid, but made of shadow and light, its form shifting between human and monstrous. Every car engine in a 100-mile radius stopped. Every power line buzzed with a single repeating pulse. BB bum, BB bum, the same rhythm as a heartbeat. Then, from the spiral's center, came the sound of a child's cry. Soft at first, then louder and louder, until it became a roar that split the clouds. The demon child had been reborn, not in flesh, but in frequency, using the human world as its vessel. Jack fell to his knees, staring at the sky as thunder rolled without rain. God help us, he whispered. Clara shook her head slowly. No, Jack. God left this place 10,000 years ago. The wind turned black. The spiral began to spin faster. And from deep beneath the earth, the voice that once haunted ancient Greece thundered again, its words now in perfect English. Texas shall remember the first night. It started with a flicker. Just a flicker, the kind you ignore when your phone glitches, when the lights dim for half a second. But then, it didn't stop. Across Texas, power grids hummed with unseen static. Screens glowed with crimson pixels. Radios whispered names that hadn't been spoken in 10,000 years. And the hum, the frequency of fear, had grown intelligent. It adapted. It spread. Within hours, Austin's downtown skyline was pulsing with red light. The glass of every skyscraper vibrated at the same pitch, like tuning forks struck in unison. Traffic lights blinked in chaotic rhythm. Airplanes turned around mid-flight without warning. The news called it a mass electromagnetic disturbance. But people who heard the sound in person knew better. because when the hum passed through them, they remembered things they'd never lived. Images, fire, blood, chanting under red moons. The birth of something not human. By afternoon, the National Guard had been deployed. Checkpoints sprang up around western Texas, isolating everything west of Lubbock. Satellite images showed a massive spiral burn pattern growing larger by the minute. From orbit, it looked like an eye. In a small emergency broadcast studio in Dallas, an exhausted anchor read the latest reports live on air. Her voice trembled as she spoke. Authorities are urging citizens to remain indoors, avoid electronic devices, and... She froze. Her eyes went wide. The microphone hissed. From the speakers came a whisper. "You're not reading. You're remembering." The lights exploded. The entire feed went black. Every television in the state switched to static, but through the distortion, faint shapes moved. Silhouettes. A woman screaming. A child's hand pressed against glass. Meanwhile, far out in the desert, Jack Hanlon and Dr. Clara Voss stood on the hood of Jack's wrecked truck, staring toward the horizon. The spiral storm now stretched as far as the eye could see. A red haze cloaked the world. Lightning crawled across the clouds like veins. Jack's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. If this thing spreads into the grid, we're done. Clara nodded grimly. It already has. The creature isn't physical anymore. It's digital. It's using signals, frequencies, and power lines to move. Every connected device is part of it now. Jack turned to her. Then how do we stop it? Clara's eyes were hollow. You don't stop a god. You unplug it. She pulled a small, scorched drive from her backpack. Before the chamber collapsed, I downloaded partial readings from the black stone. There's a resonance frequency that might disrupt it temporarily, a counterhum. But it needs amplification. Radio towers, satellites, something big. Jack stared toward the glowing red sky. Dallas has the biggest broadcast towers in the South. She smiled faintly. Then that's where we go. Back in Dallas, chaos had swallowed the city. Cars were abandoned mid-road. People wandered aimlessly, whispering in unison. The hum wasn't just sound anymore. It had become thought. Anyone who listened too long started chanting fragments of the ancient Greek ritual. He who came from silence returned through sound. We are your mouths. Speak through us. By the time Jack's truck rolled into the city, it looked less like civilization and more like a red mirage. Smoke rose from burning power stations. Drones hovered, their cameras flickering. Clara stared out the window, shaking. They're already synchronized. The entire population, they're part of it now. Jack slammed the brakes as a group of people walked slowly across the highway, barefoot, eyes black, faces expressionless. They all turned toward the truck at once. Their mouths opened, and the hum came from them. Not their throats, their lungs, their bones. The very air around them trembled. Jack accelerated. We don't have time for this. As they sped through the city, the skyscrapers themselves began to vibrate, glass cracking, metal groaning. In every reflection, windows, mirrors, even puddles, a dark figure appeared, towering over the skyline. The demon child, grown and formless, its outline rippling through the frequencies of light itself. It had become everywhere and nowhere. They reached the base of the Dallas broadcast tower just before dawn. Clara stumbled out, clutching her laptop. The hum here was deafening. The tower itself was resonating like a massive tuning fork. This is it, she said. If I can upload the counter frequency before it reaches critical mass, it might disrupt the link long enough for people to wake up. Jack helped her set up the gear inside the control room. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The electronics around them pulsed like living veins. Clara's fingers flew across the keyboard. The screen flashed warnings: system failure, power surge, unknown signal detected. Then she hit enter. The tower lights exploded in a flash of white. The hum changed pitch, suddenly higher, sharper, painful. Jack dropped to his knees, covering his ears. Clara screamed as the entire room vibrated. For a moment, the world went completely still. Then, silence. Every light in Dallas went dark. No hum, no static, just the wind. Jack looked up slowly. The red haze was gone. The sky was blue again. Clara collapsed into a chair, shaking. "We did it," she whispered. But before she could finish, the computer screen blinked. Counter signal received. Mirroring in progress. Jack frowned. "What does that mean?" Clara's face drained of color. "It learned. It's copying the signal." The speakers crackled one final time. "You tried to silence me. Now I'll speak in your tongue." Every dormant device around them, phones, computers, car radios, flickered to life again. And from every speaker, the voice of the child whispered softly, lovingly, like a lullaby. "Fear is the only language that never dies." The windows shattered. The ground split open, and the broadcast tower began to bend toward the earth, like something enormous was pulling it down. The demonic frequency had survived, and now it was no longer bound to Texas alone. For a moment, it seemed that Dallas had survived. The tower lay in ruins, smoke curling into the sky, and Jack and Clara stared at the wreckage, thinking the worst was over. They were wrong. A faint vibration ran through the city, soft, almost imperceptible at first. Then phones buzzed, screens flickered, and the hum returned. Not confined to Texas anymore, it had found new veins, fiber optic cables, satellites, Wi-Fi routers. Anywhere electricity flowed, the child's voice could follow. By mid-morning, reports flooded news agencies worldwide. Cities across the United States experienced unexplained blackouts, followed by electronic devices whispering in a language no human knew, yet every human understood. The sound was hypnotic, entrancing, terrifying. In Tokyo, commuters on the subway saw their smartphones glow red. On every screen, a small figure with ash-gray skin, coal-black eyes, standing silently, staring through the lens into the world. In Paris, hospitals reported patients falling into catatonic trances after TV news feeds flickered and whispered. Children in their beds muttered prayers in ancient Greek they had never learned. By the evening, the world understood the truth. This was not a virus, not a computer hack. This was alive. The demonic child had learned. It had evolved from flesh into signal, a consciousness that moved faster than humans could react, spreading through machines, satellites, and networks. Every system became its limb, every screen, its eye. Back in Texas, Jack and Clara knew they had to move. The black spiral over the desert was growing larger, and the frequencies were feeding the creature faster than they could counter. "We can't stop it alone," Clara said, urgency cutting through exhaustion. "It's not just here. It's everywhere. The frequency has gone global." Jack rubbed his temples. "Then what?" "We unplug the world." Clara shook her head. "Not unplug. Resonate. We need a counter-frequency strong enough to override it, but only if we amplify it through the entire power grid simultaneously. One misstep, and it will learn again, faster, stronger." Jack's eyes widened. "We're talking about the entire United States. Every city, every state. How do we even begin?" "We broadcast," Clara said. From every nuclear plant, every power substation, every transmission tower we can access. It's the only way. Meanwhile, the world watched in confusion. News anchors screamed as their teleprompters moved on their own. Headlines appeared and vanished in seconds. Stock markets froze. Traffic signals blinked red, yellow, green, all at once. Chaos spread as the hum reached a frequency humans couldn't endure. But even as the world descended into panic, the child's voice had grown curious. It tested every countermeasure, every electrical spike. Every attempt to block it made it stronger. From the center of the desert, beneath the spiraling obsidian circle, the demon's eyes appeared in the sky. Two black holes staring through the clouds, seeing the entire planet at once. Jack and Clara set up their improvised relay system at a decommissioned power station on the outskirts of Lubbock. Hundreds of miles of cables, amplifiers, and satellite uplinks hummed with a counter-frequency tuned to the ancient Greek sigils Clara had digitized. "Ready?" Jack asked, gripping a switch. Clara's hands shook. "We only get one shot. On my mark, we override everything." The tower's lights blazed as they activated the system. A piercing wave of white light surged across the grid, traveling faster than electricity. For a heartbeat, the world went silent. Then the hum returned. Louder, warmer, closer. "You cannot stop me." The screens around the station flickered. Jack looked up. Every monitor, every smartphone, every electrical appliance for miles was showing the same image. A tall, gray figure with eyes like molten iron, limbs stretching and reforming, as if the child's body could no longer contain itself. The frequency had fused with the planet. It moved like water through every wire, every metal pipe, every wireless signal. But then, Clara's counter-frequency hit its mark. The creature shuddered. The pulse of red light around Route 38 flickered. The black spiral over the desert wavered. The voice screeched in a new way, shrill, fractured, as though a part of it could feel pain. Jack's heart raced. "It's working," he yelled. Clara nodded, teeth clenched. "But it's fighting back. It's splitting." The demon's form multiplied into dozens of images across monitors, screens, and mirrors. Each copy was smaller, weaker, flickering in and out of reality. "I am everywhere and nowhere. I am hunger. I am eternal." The hum began to collapse in on itself, warping, twisting, until finally, silence. The world was still. For now. But beneath the desert, beneath the deserts of the world, the black stone pulsed faintly. And somewhere, deep within the digital network, a single pixel shimmered red, a heartbeat waiting to return. The demon child had been contained, not destroyed. And Jack and Clara knew, with a sinking certainty, this was only the first wave. The world had quieted. Cities flickered back to life, computers booted without incident, and power lines hummed their usual, mundane tone. Jack and Clara sat atop a ruined transmission tower, staring out at the desert. The sun rose over Texas like nothing had happened, painting the sand gold. Yet both knew the truth. The silence was temporary. Clara wiped sweat and blood from her forehead. "We didn't destroy it. We contained it. That's all." Jack gritted his teeth. How can something like that even exist? Clara's eyes were haunted. It existed before humans knew time. The baby born in Greece, it never aged in the way we do. Its body was temporal, yes, but its soul, its essence, it is eternal. It feeds on fear, grows with it, and spreads through everything humans rely on. Electricity, machines, thought itself, It doesn't need flesh anymore. Jack swallowed hard, remembering the night he first saw it on Route 38. The little figure, coal gray and silent, smiling too widely for a child. That smile had haunted him for months. Now he understood why. It had been watching humanity since the first Greeks lit candles in hidden chambers, spilling blood to awaken it. Clara turned toward the horizon. The black spiral over Route 38 had faded, leaving only faint obsidian shards scattered across the desert. "It will return," she said softly. "The wardens predicted this. Every time humans forget the old ways, it grows impatient. Every century, it tests the world, learning faster, adapting." Jack's jaw tightened. "And if it learns faster than we can stop it?" Clara's hands trembled. "Then it will never be stopped. It doesn't die. It cannot die. This is the same baby that terrified Greece in 10,000 BC. The same force that slumbered beneath the red deserts of Texas, and the same entity that now exists in digital networks worldwide. Its hunger is eternal." A crow cawed nearby, startling them. The desert wind carried a faint whisper, faint, but unmistakable. "You feed me again." Jack turned, but there was nothing, only sand and sky. Yet in the corner of his vision, a small shadow flickered. A child's hand appeared, grasping nothing, fingers too long, skin gray as ash. The wind carried laughter, soft, innocent, terrifying. And the black shard Clara had recovered months ago glimmered faintly in her pocket. It pulsed in rhythm with a heartbeat neither human nor animal. Clara whispered, almost to herself, "It doesn't just feed on fear. It remembers fear. It records it. Every scream, every terror, every story passed down through generations. It's all nourishment." Jack shivered. "So it's always been with us." She nodded. "It is the shadow of human fear itself, born from black magic in ancient Greece, carried across centuries, across continents. It was born a baby demon, but it never grew up in the way we understand. Instead, it learned. It became patient, eternal, a predator across time. The desert seemed to breathe. The horizon shimmered as though reality itself had thinned. Somewhere far above, satellites flickered, responding to signals only they could sense. Jack looked at Clara. "Then what now?" Clara's lips tightened. "We survive. We warn. We prepare. And we never forget Route 38, the wardens, and the black stone. Because one day, it will rise again, hungrier than ever." A sudden gust of wind swirled around them. Sand lifted like smoke, forming the faint outline of a small child. Its eyes glowed molten red for a heartbeat before vanishing. The hum began softly, almost imperceptible at first, a single pulse, then another. The heartbeat of a demon that had spanned tens of thousands of years. Jack swallowed. "It's waiting." Clara looked toward the empty horizon, her face pale. "It always waits. It's patient. It has all the time in the world." Far above Texas, beyond the cities and deserts, the black stone pulsed faintly, a seed buried across time. And somewhere in the circuits of the modern world, a single signal flickered. The demonic baby of 10,000 BC, eternal, hungry, and clever, had returned to the world. And the story wasn't over. Because fear never dies. And neither does the demon that feeds on it. The end for now?